IMX, man.
So yeah, there's other
big announcement with Amazon, huh?
Oh yeah, that's this is a great partnership. But they've got access to a little bit more than someone that's not on this program, and they've got access to sales, and so it's going to lead to more game leads for them, and the partnership of the $100,000 to as part of the deal it's huge. Like if you get 100 grand worth of credits on AWS, that's your whole entire dev period for any testing you need to do, and then maybe even 6 months to 12 months of running your game for the first year. So it'd be interesting to see. I'm not an expert on AWS. What is it? Actually, do you know what it is, AWS?
I believe, from my understanding, Amazon has massive amounts of servers worldwide, and AWS is the company that they have it under, and you need the server space to do whatever you're going to do on the web. And I look at this as, I said it was a big announcement, and yeah, you're right, a lot of these companies do oversell these announcements and stuff like that, but I think this is, it's not like they're officially part of Amazon and it's going to go to the moon or anything like that for IMX, but it gains them access to a vast pipeline of game studio leads and support for successful deal closures is the technical thing that they had written up. But in layman's terms is Amazon is going to bring IMX business and AWS infrastructure and support, and in return IMX is going to provide them back a Web3 platform for any games that are affiliated with Amazon if they want to go that route. So it's basically, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. And I think it's a big deal because Amazon has been leaning hard into the NFT space very quietly. They've been with Blanco's Block Party for a couple years now, doing things on the side with them. Recently, Mojo Melee, if I'm pronouncing that right. I don't know a lot about Mojo Melee, but I know a lot about Blanco's Block Party. Very, very cool game. And you can see that Amazon is preparing for the future.
They've built an NFT marketplace as well.
Oh, yeah. You can buy and sell on Blanco's Block Party very easily. Or are you talking about Amazon?
Amazon has built their own marketplace, NFT marketplace as well.
Yes.
So
yeah.
I'm not sure if it's live yet. So I don't know. So Amazon is not just servers. Yeah. So traditionally in the old days, you used to, your dev team the business would say to the dev team, I need to build, you to build this. The dev team would architect it, and then they'd go to the server team and say, hey, we need 400 servers to run, to ensure capacity of, running this many calculations or this many, transactions or whatever it is that the servers need the load. So they need to design and predict load. And so that would take 6 weeks minimum for the metal to arrive, the server guys to spin them up, plug them in, run the software, and get it set up into the right spec. With Amazon, what you do is you get your credit card out, you put it, you punch the number in instantaneously you get exactly what you need. And on top of that, it's not just servers like for space of hosting. There's over 200 tools that they've built to make things simpler. So, for example, a tool called Cognito, that's a login, an authentication authorization system. It's very, very quick and simple to get to run up, to build that. Where if you built your own that if you built your own, it would take you weeks to build. Where with them, it would take you less than a day, or run scripts and things like that. So, and what this is a thing called Lambda, or serverless.
Mm-hmm.
So what they've built is, so what I said before, the 400 servers, because the maximum capacity at our peak times, you're going to need to have 400 servers to be able to handle the load. But 99.9% of the time, you won't need that server capability. Because it's only peak between at lunchtimes on weekdays, sort of thing. So you're spending a lot of money on servers that don't exist. And even if you use EC2 or S3 buckets, things like that on Amazon, you're using you're buying the capacity that maximum you need. But with Lambdas or serverless or event-driven architecture, you don't need to even think about servers. You don't have to provision them or nothing. You're literally, Amazon automatically spins up the requirements you need as you need them, and you only pay per usage. So it's like micro cents per transaction.
Right.
So if you could go a month with only one transaction a day and pay virtually nothing, and then all of a sudden that one day a month in your really busy day where everyone gets on and plays their game, that on the monthly activity, it needs 5,000 capacity, 5,000 people capacity, and it does thousands and thousands of transactions. It costs you $5 that day. So it scales automatically for you what your needs are. So all of that, I read through this document, and all of it, what they were talking about was about two things: Lambdas for the event-driven architecture, and this other thing called Eventbrite that really helps developers work together remotely. And so I assume they've in 2022, Immutable changed to that event-driven architecture or Lambdas or serverless, and therefore now that they're building, they would have been building tools for developers to build their games with Immutable through that architecture. And so this is about building tools for Immutable, customers only, and because it's tied to Ethereum, so they'll build tools that will work on Ethereum. But because Immutable ZK EVM is Ethereum equivalent, it will work for Immutable as well. So that's probably how they've been able to win this business, I believe, win this partnership, because they can go, hey, we're equivalent to Ethereum, build tools that help games developers access the various things they need faster and easier, quicker and safer, and you can then scale it to other customers that use Ethereum directly.
I told you before.
I want a bit of
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just saying I talked for a long time. So
no.
Did I lose you there?
No. Yeah, I told you before we started this podcast, I had several questions to ask you, and you just hit them all in one shotgun post. So
sorry.
I'm gonna break this down a little bit. So, but it's amazing hearing you talk about this, because you were talking about Amazon, right?
Yeah.
The whole time you were talking about this, you're talking about Amazon putting all these tools in place so that customers that come to them can just seamlessly go into whatever business they're doing, and they don't have to worry about that tech side because Amazon is hosting that for a fee with a swipe of a credit card. You just basically said what IMX is doing, but for the Web3 gaming. They're following all. It sounds like they're almost following the blueprint that Amazon is doing. Or am I off on that?
No, yeah, it's pretty similar. So, however, they're not doing it for just blockchain. There's so many things that a game, like, you hear about fully on-chain games that do everything on-chain. Well, whatever reason you do that for, I've tried to understand these people, why they think it's the future. I still haven't been. To me, it's not required, but I think ZK proofs have got a real criticism that they're not necessarily on chain. Like, the stuff gets put onto chain, but there's all this back end infrastructure needed to run a ZK, and it's quite large needs. So there's a bit of information there about that as well, about Ethereum becoming data from the cloud is validated on Ethereum, that's like where they store some stuff off chain. Seems to like they'll be using Ethereum, AWS to get it, to store it off chain and then make sure it's on Ethereum as well through tools. That's one small aspect of that, I assume.
It sounds like IMX, but from what this says in this article that they put out, and from what you're telling me, it sounds like by them, IMX making this move, it's going to make them faster and have even more security than they already had. Am I off on that one?
No, that's true. That's what it is instead of the customer having to come in and build tools to get things done like they normally do on their own game, Immutable's building tools to say, hey, we know how you're going to want to use, the blockchain. This is what you're going to need. If it's not fully on chain, you're going to need stuff off chain as well. And here's the tools to make that very easy.
Right.
Instead of it's like what is a library? I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard it before, but if you say someone tells you about a library for a development language, all that is packaged up code that, for example, jQuery is a library for JavaScript, the number one language in the world, which is Solidity is based on.
Mm-hmm.
jQuery, when I first started learning to code, I used to write these things called XHR requests, and it's like a request that automatically updates the website without it refreshing. So you see those websites where things change without it refreshing. That's a XHR request. There's 25 lines of code, and to get that done, that's like the minimum you need to write is 25 lines of codes. With jQuery, you can just write $get. And that 25 lines of code is in that $1 get. So because that's a commonly used tool, the XHR code, people write tools to make things simpler for developers.
Yeah.
And that's what this is doing with Amazon. They're using Amazon to build tools for developers to be able to quickly build any needs they have for storing data, retrieving data, and maybe lot more things than that. And it's event-driven architecture is huge in Amazon. I believe they were first to build it. They either bought someone and integrated it first and built it, or they built it themselves. But they're leaders. They're the leaders in cloud. Like Google and Azure, Microsoft are playing catch up with AWS still.
Yeah, I know AWS is huge. I think they're the number one in the world.
They're number one, but everyone's predicting that Google and Microsoft will take over them, but they haven't yet, and it's because they just invest. For 10 years, they were never profitable because every single cent they made, they just reinvested into building capability in their platform. So they're the most advanced platform from capability, and it's number one used. It's global, so that's another big thing. Like developers, it doesn't matter where they are, they can instantly scale. Like you need to be able to have servers all over the world for your games if you've got a global game as well, which is very unique. Like gaming, you can't have servers 2 or 3. You need to have them 20 or 30 all over the world to like locations for ping, so that people, especially shooting games where if you've got to send you a signal for 0.2 of a second and then return for 0.2 of a second, the person's shot you and before you've even seen them, sort of thing. So
yeah,
that's another thing that this partnership will bring, is that global presence for games to be able to quickly scale, but have location-based services for their games.
Yeah.
It's exciting that they've been acknowledged by AWS. The actual website, the AWS website, has this as an article about Immutable and how it works.
Well, you're gonna have to send that to me. I haven't seen that one yet. I like what you said about they put every cent in for 10 years and weren't making any money because they wanted to control the server space atmosphere, and it's definitely paid off for them. That really, I think that's bullish for what they are doing now. They're behind the scenes quietly lining up their company to be ready for the Web3 space. It's apparent. They're bringing on these games to get involved with them. They got a marketplace going on somewhere you were talking about earlier. Now they're bringing IMX into the fold. I think IMX is just going to be like a third-party contractor for them. And it's funny that you're telling me all this stuff, and like the whole time you're telling me about it, I can totally input. You're talking about Amazon. I can input IMX into it because that's what IMX does for gaming companies. They're putting the tools in place for gaming companies to come in, not have to worry about all that infrastructure stuff, and just focus on the game. Just like Amazon put in the infrastructure stuff so that whatever business comes in there, they can focus on their business and let Amazon tools do the rest. And I like that. I think it's an awesome model.
Yeah, they did it with that Immutable X blockchain. They made it all API driven, so you didn't even actually you couldn't even write a contract. You could not do that. So you had to use the custom, the out of the box, what they built for you only, and that backfired on them a bit. It's why they're not completely dominating already. If ZK EVM was available 3 years ago, it'd be game over by now. Immutable would be like number one blockchain gaming. If you're not building there, you're silly, sort of thing. Maybe AVAX and Ronin survive. Maybe nice. Solana. But what they've got, it's good that they didn't get that first, because they've got all the mistakes that they made. They built up, and what's something that did happen is it was very different to what anyone else expected. Like, so they had problems with documentation at the start, and that got better over time, and it's definitely better now, way better now. And then they also, it was just a different way of thinking. And people were coming into the blockchain, going down a path, and then Immutable come in and say, hey, we're gas free, come and join, and we're API driven, come join us. And they're like, got to change the whole entire boat around to think, and then build all this AWS backend cloud services because Immutable didn't use custom contracts very well, or limited to 3 contracts. That's Ethereum contracts, that is. So, they've learned from that with ZK EVM, because they're going to have both. They're going to have the API ones where people, if they don't want to write Solidity at all, people will be able to use contracts through API calls, which is just a simple, here's the documentation. 95% of developers know how to consume an API. So it's like very developer friendly. And then they've got the AWS tools now as well, where maybe some of it will be API driven, some of it will be just, here's the docs, this is how you create a, like a store for data for this is how you store for data for that. This is an authentication system. There's so many different tools that they could build on AWS, and partnering with them to get them to AWS to enable Immutable to be the tool so it'll work out the box for Immutable. Other people they'd have to go do that for them as well. It wouldn't be Immutable. They build it for Immutable and it works everywhere else. The only place it'll work, it would be Ethereum equivalent chains, maybe Tyco in the future, or ZK Sync, maybe what's the other one? There's one other, Linear. So, and Ethereum itself. So other than that, all the other ones right now, they'd have to do this all again completely from scratch. So it's not like it's, maybe they will do that in the future. And this is a test case. If blockchain gaming takes off, they can, obviously AWS will do it. And will, because if another blockchain comes big, it makes sense for them to do that for gaming. But at the moment, it seems like it's just going to be.
I'm glad I know you. You've got so much information on the infrastructure side. It just blows my mind. I'm like here just like, holy smokes, this guy's just got all this information. It's just, yeah, they've got the infrastructure lined up. It's super. I'm glad they are teaming up with them. Yes, it's not a ginormous announcement, but it kind of is, because you're teaming up with one of the leaders in the industry that can handle things that maybe you could handle, but if they can handle it, you can focus on other things, and I like that. I wanted to ask you, we've talked a lot about the infrastructure with Amazon, which is super important, but the other aspect of it is that I liked is they're going to be bringing IMX gaming leads, and their AWS account managers, they're going to be incentivized to bring them leads, and that's how they're going to be paid. How does that work exactly? I don't know, but I like the capitalistic nature of that. If you bring us leads, you get paid. So what's your thoughts on the amount of games that could potentially come off of this for IMX?
Yeah, well, Amazon has like its own game engine, like Unity and Unreal. I can't remember what it's called, but it's pretty big. I think it's the third biggest one, as in games that use it. So these game leads would be using their engine to develop the salespeople that are selling them this, there's this engine to use may be, if you come and join Immutable, if you wanted to make it a blockchain game, join Immutable, they've got all the tools to seamlessly do it. They could be, that's the third biggest, after Unity, after first, then Unreal Engine, then is the Amazon one. So I think it's called Light Source or Source Light or something like that. Might look that up actually. So that is big, and also they're already winning more than 60% of games they are sailing to already now and I assume it's because of this AWS partnership and 100k potential. Like, I don't know what it takes to get 100k for a game building on them. Maybe they have to prove that they've got a certain amount of potential to earn. But right. I'll give you a hint. I was talking to a game developer the other day and about their cost. So voice and video, like running through Amazon, is really expensive. So they'd spent $360,000 on before the game's even out.
Wow!
So that's what it can. I don't think they were doing it. I don't think they were doing it really like efficiently. They're just like from the oil nations, so probably got a little bit too much money to worry about. That sounds of it. I don't know, but that was the cost that they had run up over a couple of years of running on AWS for all. They put everything for AWS. Mm-hmm. This is another thing. Like, they were going to go with Huawei, the Chinese company, and it just were changing from AWS to Huawei, and it just couldn't handle what was going to happen, what they needed them for. So they cancelled that, so then came back to AWS because they are the big player, them, Google, right, and Microsoft. But I think AWS is the biggest reach. But yeah, the sales side of things is huge. You get access to they also got internal game devs. Now, this is what I wanted to say. It's related. Robbie said on a panel that the biggest game they're ever going to announce, it will be announced shortly.
Right.
And then they announced this, like a couple of weeks after, like he said, month to 2 months. This is about a month after that panel, this announcement.
Oh.
And
okay.
I put my feelers out there into the Immutable world and employees, and I said, was this the announcement that Robbie was talking about on the panel? And he goes, I don't know if I should tell you, but no, it's not. Well, so yes, that's good news, because
my gears are turning here. So can we speculate that maybe the announcement is going to be something that's tied to Amazon then?
That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
And they then tried to turn me away from that idea. So maybe it's not right, or maybe it is, and they just not wanted it to come out yet.
Now I want to go through all Amazon's games and just come up like a top 10 of who could it be.
They're big. They got a big. Is it Lost Ark? Is that Amazon?
I have no idea. I don't know much about Amazon games, unfortunately, besides like Blanco's Black Party and Mojo Melee.
Yeah, publisher Amazon Games. Lost Ark. It's huge, mate.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I didn't even know it was with Amazon, to be honest with you, though. I've been out of the mainstream gaming. I've only been in Web3 gaming for like the last 3 years, so I'm a little behind on stuff with the mainstream.
Well,
but yeah, again, I'd have to definitely check that out. I'm glad you brought that up. That's definitely a good possibility. And I liked on Between Two Laters yesterday or the day before, I was listening. Robbie was talking about when they were in over in Asia. It was like Korea, Japan, Singapore, and somewhere else. They talked to 100 game developers, and 60 of them were like they consider them large game companies, and only one out of the 60 was like a hard no. The rest of them, half was like lukewarm, and the other half was like definitely thinking about Web3. That's a really good ratio.
Yeah, they'll all come when they see how much money they can make from the, when what's it called? When Valve works out that they're $32 billion in 3 years, they could have 10% off.
Yeah.
From creator sales, fees. What's that? What's 10%? If they put the fees at 10%, 32 billion over 3 years.
I'd be okay with 0.01% of that.
$32 million, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Holy smokes.
$320 million.
Right. Yeah, that's got to catch some eyeballs,
Yeah. So even if they did 5%, that's one. I don't know my maths. 160 million. So.
Yep. Big news. Big stuff.
They'll come. They just need the way to be shown. Like disruptors. Valve disrupted the industry with all what they did, and now they're getting disrupted. And it's very rare that someone, an incumbent, is able to change with the disruption, with the politics, with their shareholders, with the way everything's working as we want it now. We're making all this money. By the time they realise that they're being left in the dust, it's too late for them in any business, in any field, and that's what's happening to them. But I'm not. Also, people know that I don't believe that blockchain will be in every single game. I don't think there's a need for it. It's just,
No, I don't think it'll be in every single game, but I think it's going to be a lot of things. I think we all know that, and it's just going to take some time. So, I don't.
Let's round up that.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to round up AWS. Mm-hmm. So, game leads. So, leads potential sales are going to increase because of this partnership because of 3 reasons. Mm-hmm. Amazon's a big name. It's the best infrastructure for games to be able to scale, and also for global reach. Tools, because Immutable is equivalent with Ethereum. These tools will work for both Immutable and Ethereum. So games will have the option to go, you know what, if it doesn't work with Immutable, I'm still an ETH equivalent. I can go to any other chain. So it's very easy. So they're going to win because there's that easy backdoor. Now, if Immutable starts failing for some reason, then it could be a bad thing, but it's like a snowball. Once the snowball's going, that's what will happen with success. But just by winning the games in their bulk like they are, once the games start coming out in bulk and there's going to be all these hits coming, it's going to be like a snowball. So I feel that this is like another contribution to that snowball. This win, because it's another reason why developers will choose Immutable, the 100K, and then the accelerator program, the 100K. Working together. That's two massive things. We already talked about that. Elasticity. Amazon's the kings of that, building lambdas, which is called serverless technology. There really is a server there still, but the user doesn't know about it. It just automatically does. Amazon just does it. You just send a signal, and it does what normally, reduces all this code and all this reliance on infrastructure. You just pay per transaction rather than for the server to exist. Mm-hmm. There's 250,000 startups in this incubator, so it's not like it's exclusive. We'll see other gaming chains on, and once Immutable starts to get traction, and AVAX, I believe, will be a successful chain. They'll probably come there as well. And they've already got a partnership with Amazon for their. They've announced it as well, but that wasn't this. It was around their blockchains. Right. Yeah, and the win rate is going to go up because of this in the overall, and they're already at 30% and a year ago. Now they're at 60% win rate. So things starting to come together.